Aufgrund der Dringlichkeit der Situation fühle ich mich gezwungen, ein weiteres Video zu machen, das uns der Lage erklärt. Willkommen im globalen Hanovi-Netzwerk. Now, because of the extent of the deadly alliance between NDC and the socialist Marxists from 79 to 83, I felt compelled to again make another video to sort of remind the people who know and at the same time to educate the people who don't know. And let me first be clear. I am all about second chances. We all should have second chances. But when you're given second chances and your mode of operating or your modus operandi is exactly the same, one should be very cautious in interacting with you. Now, one thing is clear, based on history and precedents, is that these socialist Marxists never like to create anything from scratch. It is too difficult. There is too much work involved in doing so. So, just like they did in the 70s, where they hijacked the Jewel movement, which was created on the backs, the hard-working backs of rural St. Davidites. But when it got to a stage where it was pretty progressive and the outlook was very good, the socialist Marxists jumped in and scooped up the reins of power. And they know how to operate. They bid their time, they sit on the sidelines, and when they see things are gaining some sort of momentum, then they jump in. And they also cleverly look for innocuous, quiet, appealing, charismatic characters to put as frontmen who can emotionally rile up the masses, as they would say, and get some sort of traction. Now, after the political structure is built and they've infiltrated that particular organization, it's then and only then they work within that organization to subvert the organization and at the same time elevate themselves to power within that organization. And if you don't believe me, just look at the parallels. In the 70s, they found in Morris Bishop a charismatic man and to a very large extent, a brilliant man. A man who was capable of interacting with the people and actually gaining some sort of traction and support to promote the then formed New Jewel movement. And after that got much traction, then they jumped on board. And then when they jumped on board, they started to orchestrate their plan to secure power. And it's never an open, obvious thing. They do it very, very cunningly. So forward to the present moment. And you would see the parallels between what they did then and what is being done now. They will come in and pretend that they want to help the organization, that they want to be part of it, that their goals are innocuous and well-intentioned, but their goals are usually far more sinister. And it's usually when it's too late for you to realize, when they've gotten a stranglehold on the organization and it's too late before you realize what's happening, and they've had all of their tentacles within the organization, then they make their move. So I say this to let the current organization of the NDC understand clearly who they are dealing with. I want them to clearly understand who they are in bed with. I want them to clearly understand who they have formed alliances with. And the problem is that these people are much older now. So they're way more cunning and deceptive at what they do. They have learned from their mistakes. So they have learned how to cloak their intentions in more innocuous looking things. So for unsuspecting individuals, until it's too late, they will pounce. because they will come in and pretend that they want to help you. They want to save you from a crisis. But you must ask yourself this question. How did they deal with crises? What was the consequences of their actions or handling of crises? Well, history is a testament. What started as an economic crisis precipitated into a political crisis. And I want you to hear me out and understand that in some respects we're in a similar situation, that it is quite possible that the NDC party or the NDC government, current government, could face an economic crisis. I mean, the statistics is clear. You have what? Over 90-something million reduction in revenue. This is what the last quarterly report said. You have a drop from about 52 million to about 14 million in CBI investments. Now, in small island politics and economies, that is a heck of a lot. Now, we saw that we needed to borrow almost $1 billion to fund the budget. Coupled with all of that, you also have an increase of about 77 million in expenditure. So it's quite possible that there may be an economic crisis. And when economic crises occur, that is when you see who is actually who. When money is not flowing as it was flowing, then you see the beast in mankind. So this video is also about clearing up the myth about how politically shrewd and intellectually bright that these socialist Marxists say they were during the period of 1790-83 and think that they are right now. We're going to blow that myth to pieces. If the finance minister, okay, was so brilliant during the period 1790-83, when presented with an economic crisis, he would have been able to solve that crisis and prevent a political crisis. But instead, what he did, he got frustrated. And he says, oh, you guys expect me to pull a rabbit out of hats? So that is how they deal with crises. Because we know what happened subsequently. They started quarreling among each other. And it descended into open rivalry. Now, this is the market brilliant people. This is the market brilliant people who know how to handle crises. And you today, NDC, would want to take advice from these people? Are you freaking nuts or something? And I understand. and I sympathize with you because you have some romanticized view of who they are. Or you have some romanticized view of 1790-83. Like they made a little agro-industry and like, wow, that was such a significant achievement. And I keep reminding you, and I told you in the previous video, that everything that they did, militarily, economically, politically, was under the stewardship of foreign nations. So don't let them fool you. Don't let them have you believe that they were so markedly bright, that everything that they were doing emanated from them. And on top of that, they got arrogant with the very people who are helping them. So I say all of this to say that for you to look to these people as some sort of advisors, or for you to look at their actions as some sort of amazing precedents to follow, you're on the wrong path. You are on the wrong path. Get out of that relationship immediately for your own survival, for your own benefit. Get out of that relationship as soon as you can. Pivot away from that relationship. This is a sort of relationship. You remember when you were a young man or a young woman and your parents would advise you, see that person down there? Don't get involved with them. Don't have a relationship with them because you'll be doomed. Well, I thought a little bit of history would have taught the NDC party or the NDC government that your alliances, your closeness, okay, you getting in bed and your relationships with these people can only end up bad. It can only end up tragic. on some level or the other. And again, as I said, I believe in second chances. But what is significant? I think there was a guy, Patterson or something from Trinidad, who had some sort of interview with a couple of these guys. He was making a video about the revolution and stuff. And he interviewed a couple of them. And I want you, don't take my word for it, go take a look at their responses when they were interviewing this guy. And tell me if you believe. Tell me if you believe that there is some sort of redemptive thought in a couple of them. There was one, I think he was Minister of Mobilization back in the days. Mr. Patterson might have asked me, said, well, look, you're part of the leadership. Do you take any responsibility for what happened? Did you give any orders or something to that effect? And he says, with a smirk on his face, well, somebody may have given the orders, but who did? And he totally dissociates himself from responsibility for the actions. Now, is this somebody who's redemptive? Somebody who's redemptive would say, just by our very position of leadership, I think collectively we have to take some sort of responsibility. Just by being in the position, if you're CEO of a company, if you're some lieutenant in a company and the company fails, don't you think that you would have some sort of responsibility? Same thing in government. Just by your very position, if something goes awry, then you immediately have to take responsibility for what happened. This gentleman didn't want to take responsibility. He pretended that it was, poof. It came out of the sky. Another one who was a major. And you know what's so funny? His reaction in the interview with Mr. Patterson was actually reminiscent of his alleged action during a CC meeting to discuss the problems that was brewing at the time. So during the interview with Mr. Patterson, Mr. Patterson said, you got incarcerated, but how do you feel about all of that? Do you feel, there's any guilt or anything? He says, no, absolutely not. I wasn't guilty. This is the gentleman's response. It's there on tape for everybody to see. Don't take my word for it. He said, absolutely not. Again, with a smirk on his face. But there's a story, allegedly, as I was just telling you about, of the same gentleman when comrades were having a meeting to try to discuss and try to find a way forward to resolve the issues that were brewing at the time in the PRG. Guess what? This is the same gentleman that was alleged to have come into that meeting being frustrated by the progress that was being made to some sort of resolution, came into that meeting, took up a Makarov and slammed it down on the table and said, we better come to some sort of solution or else there will be an Afghan solution. And I want you, for those who don't know what an Afghan solution meant, there was some sort of precedence, some sort of situation that took place in Afghanistan at the time, where there was one faction within the government that believed the other faction was not hardline enough. And of course, you know how that ended. It pretty much ended like how the PRG ended in 1983. So they say words are powerful. So the gentleman says, there better be some sort of resolution or there will be an Afghan solution. And in some respects, there was an Afghan solution on October 19, 1983. So these are the gentlemen you're dealing with. And these are the gentlemen that you're thinking about getting in bed with or being in bed with. These are the gentlemen that you're looking forward to help you politically. It's the same sort of attitude, God rest his soul. The general at the time, whatever they related to him, he sort of believed the storyline. And at least that's what he said. But eventually, to the end, he sort of came around. And he explained everything that was happening inside the PRG. He understood and he probably connected the dots. They said, whoa. Well, the story they told me didn't make any sense. And I guess he might have had conversation with people, and then he realized that he too was duped. I mean, he was under duress. It's not like he had any pull at the time. He was general in name. And of course, he got co-opted into the whole incarceration and problems by association. So I will relate another story just to dispel the myth of this so-called brilliance. So after all of this happened on October 19, 1983, so if the colonel was so smart, why would he have thought that it was wise to depend on the Cuban construction workers around the airport to defend the airport when the quote-unquote enemy at the time was invading? I say this to show you that the pretense coming to you now and pretending that they're masters of brilliance and they can be advisors to you is a farce. That is why what they're leading you to or advising you on or encouraging you to do would only lead to your own demise. They're not masters of building anything. They're masters of deconstructing what other people have built. They're opportunists at best. So just imagine knowing the allegiance and the love that the Cubans had for Morris. The gentleman, in his brilliance, actually had the guts to try to encourage the Cubans to defend the airport. Guess what? By 12 o'clock on that day, they all surrendered. And guess who? Guess who was forced to try to go reinforce the South in the Calais area? Guess who had to go and try to fight back at enemy forces in the South? You guessed it. Young Grenadian men. And their heroic tales of their valor. A matter of fact, the quote-unquote enemy then had infiltrated so much all the way up to the Foxen area. And these young men, when they ascended that hill, received so much devastating fire that they had no choice but to try to turn around in the middle of the street. And there's a heroic story told of a gentleman, a young Beggs, who was such a good driver, was able to spin, who did such an amazing maneuver in the middle of the road with his vehicle and save so many of his soldiers. And I keep telling you, as it relates, or as was related, there is really one man among the many at that level who had shown some courage, and that is the lieutenant. But sadly, that gentleman's military prowess was misused by a corrupted, individualistic leadership. That gentleman could have been an honorable soldier of integrity. Could have been up to this day. That gentleman probably could have had an illustrious, honorable military career. But sadly, in some respects, I believe that he was used. He was used by people who lack leadership, who themselves were ill-disciplined, unrighteous, self-serving people. So there you have it. It's another clear and stark warning to Grenadians. And for you who sensationalize and romanticize the 79-83 period and the October 25th invasion and thought that these guys had some significant military prowess, don't let them fool you. If you were looking for military prowess, look to your regular Grenadian man and woman who had the guts at the time to stand up. Look to the very young men and women who put themselves in harm's way to defend their country. Never look to these guys for some sort of leadership or some sort of advice. It's the worst place you're looking. To a very large extent, they are dishonorable men. So again, a word to the wise is sufficient.